Science fiction has always been one of my absolute favorite genres, and my favorite way to enjoy the genre, of course, is through video games. And what better place to look for sci-fi themed games than on Steam? With so many games available on their platform, there's bound to be a lot of sci-fi entries to find and enjoy. Of course, not every game on Steam is going to be great. In fact, some of them are really bad, but that's something I'm counting on. Hi, my name is Crozo, and I love sci-fi so much that I often find myself enjoying the bad stuff too. Ever since I was a kid, I've consumed quite a bit of science fiction. Shows, movies, and plenty of books. And some of them were just really bad, especially the movies. But despite being bad, I still enjoyed a lot of them. So I don't see any reason why that can't apply to video games as well. So in this series, I'll be looking at sci-fi games with mixed or negative ratings on Steam. I want to see what exactly went wrong with these games for myself, and I want to see if the games can still be fun to play despite their issues. The game I'm looking at in this video is Steel Shell. Developed by Boom Games team and released on February 25th, 2022, this game received a score of 38%, and it goes for a price of 99 cents. It's also the only game this developer ever released on Steam. Given the score, price, and the fact that this is their only game since 2022, I already had a pretty good suspicion of what I was walking into. A low-effort game that is probably using store-bought assets for the purpose of making a quick buck. Now, using store-bought assets alone isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when developers don't actually put any effort in the rest of the game, that's when it becomes a problem. The game is described as a third-person shooter in the style of dark cyberpunk. There is no linear plot, quests, and pumping. Just grab the first cannon you see and scrap those damn droids. You are provided with a mountain of firearms, a melee system, and 4 arenas captured by evil robots so that you can use all this arsenal. Features include responsive character control model, spectacular combat system, diverse AI, atmospheric locations, and lots of electronic music. I feel like the game store page description itself is more than enough of a red flag to warn people not to buy this game. The description doesn't do this game any favors. It paints the game as a very bland, very short shooter game. Honestly though, calling it bland might still be a bit too generous, because it sounds like there's no motivation behind the gameplay. There's no story, no basic narrative, just 4 levels where you destroy robots. At least it's an honest description, though I will say I'm not quite sure what pumping is supposed to be. I tried looking that term up in reference to video games, and none of what I found really applies to this game, so I'm not quite sure what they're boasting about here by saying there's no pumping. But reading about it is one thing, actually playing it is something else. So let's actually jump into the game. And as soon as I did, the first place I went to was the settings menu so that I could see if it was possible to mute the music. Because with a game like this, the electronic music is probably purchased and not made in-house, which means it would probably be safe to err on the side of caution with YouTube's copyright system. Alright, Steel Shell. Let's go to options first to see what we've got here. Unfortunately, I couldn't modify the volume at all. In fact, the only thing I could modify were some standard graphic settings. There were no basic gameplay or control settings to speak of. There is a control map to learn the controls from, but instead of being a menu where I could actually make changes and stuff, it's just an image that will pop up when I press a button. And the UI isn't exactly great either. In the settings menu there are only 7 settings, but the font sizes and the buttons are so huge that you need a scroll bar just to see them all in this small box. It's incredibly cramped. That is some unnecessarily big text here. Resolution, full screen, lots of graphic stuff, everything maxed out, I think. Yep, it's maxed out. Oh, no, never mind. I cannot modify anything? On top of that, in order to modify the settings, you have to click on either the cancel or reset button to enable the buttons for each setting. Okay, this is all just for looks apparently, because I can't change any of this. Oh, wait, now I can. Okay, that's weird. I had to press cancel to actually modify something. We'll just leave it. We'll leave everything at ultra and see how well it performs. Cancel, apply, back. Okay. Oh, it just sent me straight to the level select. I mean, there wasn't that many options in the main menu, but still, that's concerning that it just sent me straight here. You know, what happens if I wanted to actually go back to the settings real quick to fix something I made a mistake on? And it does not seem like I have an option to go back to the main menu. If I click quit game, is it gonna actually quit the game? Yes, it just quits the game. So there's no way to backtrack to the main menu to continue playing with your settings after you do that. Now, I know that may not seem like a huge deal for this game since there's nothing else going on in the main menu, but it's still nice when you think about those sort of things that could happen when you're developing your UI. But once I got my settings sorted out, I went to the level select screen. The 4 levels of the game are all immediately available to us. I loaded up the first level, and the first thing that hit me was that insane amount of bloom. My eyes were not prepared for that wall of light. I tried to get a good look at the character I'm playing as, but unfortunately, whenever I move my camera, she immediately turns to face the direction the camera is pointing at. While doing this, however, I did notice that she was not rigged properly for some of her animations. I don't know what's going on with this model. Like, what the hell is going on with her clothes? Because, like, yeah, the armor around the model is not really done very well because it just goes right through her body. This likely means that the model and the animations were purchased separately from an asset store, and they didn't bother to make any adjustments for them to work together properly. But once I finished inspecting the character, I proceeded with the level. The first level was basically a tutorial level, and it actually did a good job at covering the things I could do. Watch your step. What does that mean? Oh, I see it. Oh, wow, that was very... yeah, there's just like these little spikes here. The first enemy we come across is for the stealth takedown tutorial. I kinda messed it up the first time, but was able to get it the second time around. However, the animation didn't make a lot of sense. It's a chokehold for a robot. I'm guessing the developers didn't care about the takedown making sense and probably just bought an animation that wouldn't cost them too much. The next room gives us our first taste of actual combat. Oh my god, the lighting is horrible. It's blinding. Oh my god, okay. Cover doesn't do anything. And yeah, so let's break down what just happened there. First, I have to drop down into the room to fight the robots, and when I do that, the character is forced into this landing animation that takes a couple of seconds to complete. And in that time, the robots are free to shoot at me as much as they want. This is not the only time the landing animations will be a problem, and it won't just be with combat. Once I could move, I crouched down thinking that it might help me out a bit. It didn't. In fact, it actually just slowed me down trying to get to cover. I was able to eventually get behind cover, but by that point, the enemies were already on top of me and took me out. That last part was probably more my fault, but in my defense, for an FPS game, I was expecting the crouched movement to be a little faster, especially when you're getting shot at. Now, this attempt revealed a few things. The first thing, the obvious thing, was that the combat is incredibly unbalanced, primarily because the damage we suffer from the enemy is a bit much. Each hit I received took more than 20 points of my health, which means that even if I was at full health, they would only need about 5 hits to take me down. And the robots in this room weren't even equipped with heavy firepower. The second thing is that they implemented a clothing destruction mechanic for our character model, which I guess was kind of cool. I'm just not sure what the point of that was. It just felt like it was a very random thing to throw into the game. If they wanted it to represent how much damage we've taken before we died, that would have been fine, but we already had a health bar, so it seemed to be just purely for the sake of having it. The third thing, and this is probably just as critical an issue as the unbalanced combat, was the level persistence between checkpoints. Look at how much ammo I had before I died. Now look at how much ammo I have after the checkpoint reloaded. It puts a full mag in my weapon, but I still lost the 2 bullets I managed to fire before I died. And it's not just the ammunition. Throughout the game, I've noticed that enemy placement, enemy health, defeated enemies, traps, and item drops do not reset as well. The enemies not resetting is a nice bit of relief considering how difficult they can be, but the ammo count and item drops not resetting poses a huge problem, especially in the later levels where dying will definitely be more frequent. Which means that there is a possibility that I could end up with no ammo for the rest of the level, which means I would have to fully resort to melee to fight robots until I found more ammo. And given how much damage the robots can do to me, I would have probably lost half my health by the time I've closed in on the enemy to do so, and stealth kills have rarely been an option for me. The opportunity to get myself in position to perform one has been very hard, mostly because it seems impossible to be able to get near an enemy to do a stealth takedown without being spotted. But fortunately for this level at least, running out of resources is not the problem I have to worry about. Making my way to the next room, I find a shotgun, a sniper rifle, and a handful of supplies. I went for the sniper rifle first to see how well it would work. Don't fall into the water. Got it. Ah, I see there's a platform. Oh, I did not mean to do that. How do I zoom in? Z. That does not make... That's not working. PC, Z to sniper rifle zoom. And it didn't, because the key that's supposed to activate the scope for some reason didn't work. So I went for the shotgun. Interesting. So sniper rifle does not even work fully. Z is not working at all. In which case there's no point to this. In the next room I find two new enemies, the flying drone and platforming. And I wish that was me trying to be funny. Oh, wow, you I guess I need momentum there. She jumps more vertical than she does forward. That doesn't really make much sense. Starting with the drones, they are more difficult than the humanoid robots for some reason. And not because they are more mobile or smaller or something like that, but instead because they can take a lot more damage than the humanoids. If you recall from earlier where I'm fighting the humanoids, despite them being able to hit me for a lot of damage, I could also hit them for quite a bit of damage. It at most took me just a couple of hits to take them down. For the drones, it takes a lot more. And worse yet, there is a shield variation of all these enemies, and that shield appears to double their lifespan and then some. But once I cleared out all the enemies that can fight back, it was time to tackle the new enemy. Platforming, which kinda came out of left field, but it seems simple enough. We've got these little launchers, and simply coming into contact with one will launch me in the air. But there's two problems that make this a gigantic pain. The first problem is level design, and this actually carries over to a lot of other levels as well. For this level in particular, the placement of each platform here as well as the launchers is a little problematic. The majority of the time, my main problem was actually making it to the next platform. Even when I had a running start, I'd sometimes fall short. The launchers are also a little at fault for this. It always feels like I'm not getting any forward momentum from the launcher. Oh my god. the platforming is horrible. It barely sends her forward. The second issue is the landing animations. Now we've already seen how landing animations could impact combat. The ground slam animation that we can sometimes find ourselves in will lock us in that animation until it's complete, giving enemies the chance to shoot at us. In this situation, the ground slam animation would have been ideal. Unfortunately, there is another landing animation, and it is very problematic for the platforming in this game. It is a tuck and roll animation which has sent me off the platforms many times. And from what I could tell from experimenting, there's no way to control which one you're going to get. So sometimes I'm lucky and I get the ground slam animation. Or sometimes, even better, I just land on my feet. No animation period. Other times, however, I'm rolling off the other side of the platform. It took me 5 minutes just to get past this when it honestly should have only taken 1. Okay, I gotta aim for that corner. No, no, oh my god. Okay. But I eventually got past it, and I now faced what I hoped was the last part of the level, and it had one last major tutorial to show me: sneaking past detection cones. There are two enemies that have this: security cameras, which can alert nearby enemies, and turrets. In this room we've got the turrets, unfortunately. The idea was fine, but the execution wasn't. The choice of color going against the rest of the environment, including the lighting, made it difficult to see where the cones stopped sometimes. So I did mess this part up, and unfortunately I only ever got the one chance, because I came across the most problematic bug in this game: a softlock caused by the checkpoint. I don't know if it was caused by a glitch or if it was bad placement, but I ended up respawning over the spot where the moving platform should have been. And since it wasn't there, I kept falling into the water and dying. I let it continue for about a minute in the hopes that the persistency through checkpoints would also apply to the environment, and it looks like it never did. And outside of checkpoints, there is no saving or loading available, so I had to give up on this level completely and move on to the second one. The second level is a complete 180 in terms of level design compared to the first level. It's using real assets instead of the basic geometric shapes with textures that the first level had. It's also much bigger, which at first glance looks really cool and makes one think they put a lot of effort into it, even if only for appearance. Which, if that was the case, then this would have been fine. But the developers added more to the level than what was needed. Specifically, they added even more platforming than the first level for the sake of actual vertical exploration, and it was all completely pointless. The main problem was that this couldn't be used to create alternate routes of exploration to complete the level, because the main point of the game is to destroy all robots. And outside of the main route, there were no extra enemies to find through all this platforming. There also wasn't really any extra supplies to find either. The only seemingly impressive thing I found was a grenade launcher, and the key word there is seemingly, because when I tried to use it against shielded enemies, it took 2 shots just to take down the shields. And there wasn't a lot of ammo for it in the first place, so it was still pretty much worthless. So I ultimately gave up on any platforming except for where it was actually required. Enemies are more or less the same: humanoid robots, drones, and turrets. There is one new enemy, but it only appears once and it is completely out of place. It looks like a regular human, which is pretty odd considering the game is supposed to be about fighting robots. And then this random human just comes out of nowhere and kicks my ass. Wait, that was a human. That wasn't a robot. What the heck? Yeah, that's 100% a human and not a robot. I tried to hit him and that didn't work. Also, as you probably have guessed, dying was pretty much all I was doing in this level. Fortunately, with the way level persistence worked, I was able to slowly take down the enemies bit by bit. See if I can kite this guy over here, because his aggro doesn't seem to alert others to me, so I can at least take care of them one at a time. Oh, he's kind of dumb. Okay, this is gonna take a bit. Okay, they got me 20 bullets, but at the cost of a lot of health, so I don't know if it was worth it. The problem with the... But at the same time, I was also running out of ammo pretty quickly, especially when fighting the drones. If the robots didn't drop their weapons for me to use, I have no idea how I would have gotten as far as I did. Why can the drones take so much hits? That doesn't make any sense. I only got 5 rounds left, so I might be screwed. At one point, I actually had to use the melee system to take down some enemies. He was shooting me while he was on the ground and his gun wasn't even pointing at me. It was a bit over the top. I was just expecting something basic like bashing them with my firearm. Instead, I got this over the top combo. But eventually, I made it to the next section, which required me to go through this obstacle, which I found more bizarre than having to fight that one random human. Oh, this is going to be fun. I did get hit a few times with it, but it wasn't too difficult. Okay, it's really hard to tell when I'm supposed to go. It's not very clear. It's very brief. There better be a checkpoint here. I then braced for another annoying gunfight. I died. And then I got soft locked again. I'm pretty sure where I'm spawning is under the section just before the fire obstacle, but what I don't understand is why I'm spawning here instead of up there. I also think that the height shouldn't be enough to kill me. Maybe take out a chunk of my health, but not all of it. The drop doesn't even look that big. I'm also not sure why the checkpoint didn't come after the fire obstacle, you know, so that I wouldn't have to go through it every single time and lose health before the firefights. But it didn't matter because once again I had to quit the level because there was no way I could break out of this. It doesn't even look like I'm dropping that far down. What is going on? Alright, so I am now soft locked out of that level. At this point I was pretty much fed up with the game, but I decided to give the third level a shot. Nothing new happened in this level and I didn't come across anything crazy, mostly just because I didn't get very far. I will give them points for the ragdoll physics. That's actually really funny. I don't know if I was just tired or frustrated or both, but I just could not get past this first section and I ultimately gave up. I can't play this anymore. It's just not possible. This game is incredibly unbalanced. It was poorly designed, it was poorly programmed. I don't know what they were thinking with half the stuff in here. I just can't. So yeah, that was Steel Shell. After I finished playing the game, I decided to do a bit of research to see if this game was indeed an asset flip. And I was able to confirm that at least the player character model was a purchased asset. The model is called Cosmo Catgirl and can be found on the Unity Asset Store. And they made minimal changes to this character, basically taking away her cat ears and cat tail and changing her hair color. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, there's nothing inherently wrong with using store-bought assets. Getting into game development can be difficult, especially when you don't have access to the skills or money to build certain assets, so having an asset store is very helpful. However, that means you have to put all the effort in the work you can do and make a really good game to help detract from the fact that you are using store-bought assets. Something this developer clearly did not do. Just to name a few, the unbalanced combat, the barely sensible level design, and the strangely very repeatable soft-locking checkpoints, they are all proof of that. And even if it didn't have all these problems, what exactly is the point of the game? Because looking back at the store page, it's very obvious that they are pretty much admitting to the fact that there is nothing substantial to this game. And I'm not saying it's impossible to make a game without a story or quest or anything like that. Games like Risk of Rain are pretty good examples of that. But Risk of Rain still gives you fun gameplay and a meaningful goal. It also has enough content to help make the game incredibly replayable, such as different playable characters and a bunch of unlockables. Also, whether you win or lose in the game, you get a really nice stat screen that shows you how well you performed up until the playthrough ended. I'm not saying Steel Shell had to do everything like that exactly like Risk of Rain or any other existing game, but it needs to do something to make up for all the things it doesn't have. But that's all I really have left to say for this game, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is actually my first time attempting something like this, and there were definitely challenges and lessons to learn from it, but I still had a lot of fun making it. I especially enjoyed the content style of this video because it was a lot less stressful for me. If you've ever watched my live streams, you know that I'm really bad at talking while playing games at the same time. I'll mess up words and even whole sentences, and it sometimes takes me a moment to straighten myself out so I can say what I want to say. Doesn't really bother me for live streams because I'm just having fun playing games while chatting with my viewers, but when it comes to recorded stuff on YouTube, especially a Let's Play video, I'm a little bit self-conscious about it. So this style made it much easier for me because 1, I could collect all my thoughts into a script beforehand to help minimize mistakes, and 2, any mistakes that do still happen, I can just cut them out without affecting the overall quality of the video. So I'm definitely going to be sticking with this style. One other thing before I end the video, I want to give a quick shout out to another content creator whose own content is actually what inspired me to do this series specifically, Wicked Wizard. When I was working on this video, I actually reached out to him to see what he thought of it and to make sure the similarities between my potential content and his actual content wasn't cutting it kind of close. You see, with me being a VTuber with a PNG model, making videos talking about bad games, with a reviewing content style, you can kind of understand why I might have been unsure if I had crossed that line or not. And I have anxiety problems, so that kind of stressed me out a bit. So I reached out to him about it and even gave him a link to the video to see for himself, and he was actually totally fine with it, encouraging me to go through with it, and he even gave me suggestions for other stuff that I should do with my channel, which was really cool of him. I was not expecting that at all. So big shout out to him. I highly recommend checking out his videos too. He's actually got 2 channels. The first is Wicked Wizard, where he does his Worst Games on Steam series, and the second one is Wicked Wiz, where he has his What Went Wrong series, which covers games that could have been successful but failed for one reason or another. So yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to hit the like button and consider leaving a comment below to let me know what you think as well. And if you want to stay up to date on new stuff as it comes out, maybe consider subscribing to the channel and checking out my other socials. Thanks for watching, and until then, I will see you guys next time.